There is something about music that bypasses thought and strikes directly at the center of human experience. It doesn't need translation. It doesn't rely on language, yet it reaches deep into memory, emotion, identity, and imagination in ways nothing else can. Every culture on Earth has developed music. Even isolated tribes with no contact with the outside world have rhythm, melody, and instruments. Music predates writing. It may even predate spoken language. In caves in Germany, archaeologists have discovered flutes made of bone estimated to be over 40,000 years old. Our ancestors were creating music before they were building cities or farming land, and perhaps even before they understood what language was. That raises a deeper question. Why? Why would early humans spend energy and time carving instruments instead of tools? Why do infants respond to lullabies before they understand a single word? Why does the brain seem wired to experience music not just as sound, but as something meaningful and profound? Neuroscience is only beginning to answer these questions, and what it's finding is nothing short of astonishing. When you listen to music, your brain doesn't just activate a single region. It lights up like a city from orbit. The auditory cortex processes the sound. The motor cortex anticipates rhythm. The hippocampus recalls memory. The amygdala feels emotion. The prefrontal cortex searches for patterns and meaning. Even your cerebellum, responsible for movement and coordination, is involved, synchronizing rhythm and time. But something even more remarkable happens when a person creates music, especially when improvising. Studies on jazz musicians, for example, reveal that during improvisation, nearly every region of the brain becomes active simultaneously. Creativity, memory, motor function, emotion, timing, and pattern recognition all fire at once. It's as if the brain becomes one interconnected system, working in harmony. No other human activity produces this same kind of full brain engagement. Not mathematics, not chess, not language, not physical exercise. Music is unique. And when we go deeper into the minds of those who compose some of the greatest music in human history, the mystery only deepens. Ludwig van Beethoven began to lose his hearing in his late 20s. By the time he composed some of his most legendary works, his Ninth Symphony, for example, he was almost completely deaf. He could not hear a single note he was writing. Yet the music he created was not only structurally brilliant, but emotionally transcendent. How can someone who cannot hear create such sound? Beethoven once wrote that he didn't need to hear the music. He could feel it. He said, "Music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy." That idea, music as something above and beyond, is not just poetic. It may be neurologically true. Brain scans of composers and musicians show that during moments of deep creation, the brain stops functioning in a normal, linear fashion. Logic, emotion, memory, and motor coordination all intertwine. Some scientists believe that in those moments, conscious thought is suspended and something else takes over. Something less individual, something more universal. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart reportedly composed entire symphonies in his head before writing down a single note. He claimed the music came to him as if from outside himself, fully formed, needing only to be captured. In letters, he described hearing music constantly, as though his mind were tuned to a different frequency. This metaphor of tuning has echoed through centuries. Pythagoras believed the entire cosmos operated on the principle of harmony. He spoke of the music of the spheres, the idea that planets and stars move in mathematical ratios that mirror musical intervals. To him, the universe itself was a symphony. Modern physics, strangely enough, is revisiting similar ideas. String theory proposes that the fundamental particles of the universe are not points, but tiny vibrating strings. Different vibrations create different particles. In essence, the universe may be made of sound, vibration at an unfathomably small scale. If this is true, then the universe doesn't just create music, it is music. If the universe vibrates, and vibration is the foundation of sound, then perhaps music is not an invention of the human mind, but a discovery. Like mathematics or gravity, music might be a fundamental law of reality that we slowly uncover, note by note. This idea helps explain why music feels so universal, why people across time, geography and language respond to it in similar ways. Minor chords often evoke sadness. Major chords evoke joy. Fast rhythms bring excitement. Slow tempos calm us down. These reactions are not learned. They are instinctive. Babies respond to rhythm before they can walk. Birds, whales and elephants create songs to communicate. Some neuroscientists believe that the brain evolved not just to process sound, but to find patterns in vibration. Our ears are simply tools. But the meaning, the emotional response, emerges in the brain itself. And it does more than just entertain us. Music heals. In Alzheimer's patients, music can unlock memories that seemed lost forever. In stroke victims, rhythm can help rebuild speech and movement. Soldiers with PTSD often respond more to melody than to words. Music therapy is now being used in hospitals and clinics around the world, with measurable results. But why? Because music engages the brain at every level: emotional, physical, cognitive, and social. When you sing or listen to a song, your brain creates new neural pathways. It strengthens connections. It bypasses damaged circuits and forms new ones. And when you create music, especially when you improvise or compose, something even more extraordinary happens. Your brain becomes synchronized. All regions start working together without hierarchy. Logic doesn't dominate emotion. Memory doesn't suppress instinct. Instead, they all become part of a larger, unified process. A process we still don't fully understand. This full brain engagement has been called a neural symphony. And in moments of intense musical creativity, some individuals report a sensation of losing themselves completely, of entering a flow state, of becoming a channel for something greater than themselves. Beethoven felt it. Mozart described it. Jazz improvisers live it. And modern neuroscience confirms it. During these moments, the part of the brain associated with self-awareness, called the default mode network, actually shuts down. That means the musician stops thinking about themselves. There is no ego, no fear, no planning, just music. It is almost as if the brain stops functioning like a separate human mind and begins resonating with something larger, something beyond the self. Perhaps that is why music affects us so deeply. It reminds us, if only for a moment, that we are part of something vast, harmonious, and mysterious. It lifts us from the linear flow of time. It suspends us in vibration. It connects us to others. And maybe, just maybe, it connects us to the universe itself. We feel music not only with our ears, but with our entire being. Our skin, our breath, our heartbeat. It can bring tears without words, joy without thought, memory without images. It is pure communication, pure pattern, pure resonance. And the deeper science dives into this mystery, the more it seems that music is not merely something humans do. It is something the universe is doing through us. In the deepest parts of the brain, far beyond conscious thought, music triggers a reaction that no other stimulus can replicate. It doesn't just activate memory or emotion, it integrates them. It weaves together reason and feeling, structure and chaos, order and spontaneity. This might explain why so many of humanity's greatest minds have been drawn to music, not just as an art, but as a key to something eternal. Albert Einstein once said that if he were not a physicist, he would have been a musician. He believed music gave him the intuition to understand the laws of the universe, long before equations made sense. He played the violin not for leisure, but to think more clearly. Pythagoras saw musical intervals in the same ratios that governed the orbits of planets. Kepler described celestial movement as harmonic resonance. Even Isaac Newton believed that the colors of the spectrum corresponded to musical notes. To them, the universe was not a machine. It was a song. And if that's true, then the human brain, when composing, improvising, or simply listening, is not just reacting to sound. It's participating in the cosmos. It's syncing with a frequency that has always been there, hidden beneath matter, language, and thought. That may be why music can make us cry without reason, why it can flood us with nostalgia for moments that never happened, why it can make a single minute feel eternal or bring a lifetime into one chord. Music bends time. It collapses memory and emotion into a single moment. It reaches into trauma, into joy, into our deepest fears and hopes, and unites them in resonance. And no one fully understands how. We can scan brains, we can chart notes, we can analyze frequencies and tones, but none of that explains why a melody makes your chest ache, why a crescendo lifts you off the ground, why a silence between two notes can feel like the universe itself is holding its breath. That is not simply biology. It is something more. When a jazz pianist closes their eyes and their fingers begin to move across the keys with no plan, no hesitation, no thought. When a child starts humming to themselves in a dark room, comforted by a tune they didn't learn. When a symphony ends and an entire concert hall sits in stunned silence. Something else is speaking. Something we don't have a name for. Music doesn't come from the brain. It comes through it. And in those moments of total musical connection, whether we're the creators or the listeners, we touch the edges of something that science can't fully define. Something ancient, invisible, and yet completely real. We stop being individuals. We become instruments, and the universe plays through us. In the quiet after a song ends, there's often a feeling we can't explain. It's not just silence. It's something heavier, a kind of echo that lingers, not in the air but in us. It's as if the body remembers something the mind cannot translate, a truth that was just revealed and then instantly taken away. That sensation might be the closest we ever get to touching the source of music. Because while we often think of music as entertainment or art, it may be something more essential, a clue, a signal, a language older than words, a force that shapes consciousness itself. In studies of the brain under musical stimulation, scientists have observed patterns that mimic dreaming, deep meditation, and even spiritual ecstasy. Music synchronizes neural oscillations. It aligns chaotic thoughts. It bridges the hemispheres of the brain and creates harmony where before there was noise. This harmony is not just auditory. It's emotional, cognitive, existential. And when people play music together, whether in an orchestra, a band, or even just singing in a circle, something remarkable happens. Their brain waves begin to synchronize. Their heart rates align. Their bodies breathe in time. This is not metaphor. It is measurable. Human beings literally tune into each other through music. We become a single organism made of sound and rhythm. And for a brief moment, the illusion of separateness dissolves. Maybe that's why music is so important in rituals, in funerals, in celebrations. It binds us in something larger. It holds space for the sacred. It creates a container for emotion too large to express in words. And when it disappears, we feel the loss. Because music reminds us that reality is not made only of matter. It is made of movement, of vibration, of frequency. And those things are not just physical, they are experiential. They shape the way we feel time, space, and life itself. Perhaps that's why composers throughout history have described music as something divine. Not in the sense of religion, but in the sense of connection to something infinite. Something that speaks not to who we are, but to what we are. Beethoven composed in silence. Mozart wrote symphonies in his head. Miles Davis could play a single note and change the air in a room. These were not acts of ego or brilliance alone. They were acts of tuning, of aligning the human brain with the deeper vibrations of reality. In the end, the most astonishing thing about music might not be that we create it, but that it already exists, and we are simply remembering it. Think about it. The universe doesn't speak. It doesn't write. It doesn't paint. But it vibrates. Everything that exists, from the smallest atom to the largest galaxy, is in motion. And every motion creates a frequency. Some of those frequencies are too slow for us to hear. Some are too fast. But some fall right into the narrow range we call sound. And within that range we find music. That's not a coincidence. Our ears evolved not just to detect danger or language, but to perceive patterns in vibration. Patterns that resonate with our bodies, with our emotions, with the very structure of our brains. We are not just listeners, we are instruments. And when we create music, we are not inventing beauty from nothing, we are shaping resonance into form, giving structure to what already exists, carving emotion from silence, catching fragments of the infinite and translating them into sound. That is why music feels like truth. Because it bypasses logic, it bypasses analysis. It arrives fully formed, wrapped in vibration, and enters the body like light enters the eye. No explanation needed, no permission required. And sometimes, in the middle of a song, something strange happens. We forget we are human. We forget time. We forget ourselves. All that remains is movement, emotion, and presence. The present moment becomes infinite. The melody becomes a portal, and the sound becomes a kind of home. We've always known this, even if we couldn't explain it. That's why ancient civilizations built temples with perfect acoustics. Why chants and drums were used to speak with gods. Why every culture invented its own musical language, because music was the bridge, the channel, the thread between the physical and the invisible. And maybe it still is. Maybe when you hum a tune walking alone at night, or when you put on headphones and escape into a song, or when a melody from your childhood suddenly plays and stops you in your tracks. Maybe in those moments you are not alone. Maybe the universe is listening back. Because the universe doesn't think in language, it thinks in music. Some scientists believe that consciousness itself may not originate in the brain, but emerge from deeper patterns, electrical, quantum, or even vibrational. If that's true, then the mind might not be a closed system. It might be a receiver tuned to certain frequencies. And maybe music is what happens when we temporarily align with those frequencies, when we become receptive, when the noise of thought clears and something pure can enter. That would explain why the most powerful musical experiences don't feel like performances. They feel like revelations, as if the song already existed, floating somewhere beyond perception, waiting to be discovered. As if the composer didn't invent it, but uncovered it, like an archaeologist brushing dust from a fossil, revealing a shape that was always there. Great artists have said this again and again. Mozart said the music came to him complete. Beethoven said it revealed itself. Coltrane said he played to reach God. They weren't exaggerating. They were describing an experience of contact with something vast, invisible, and deeply intelligent. And yet this contact doesn't require genius. A child banging on pots and pans can feel it. A teenager with a broken heart can find peace in a song. A person grieving a loss can cry without knowing why, because the notes understood something they couldn't say. Music reaches where nothing else can. It is the whisper behind language, the shape behind thought, the feeling before words. And maybe it's not just inside us. Maybe we are inside it. Maybe we are born into music, the way a fish is born into water. We hear it in the rhythm of our mother's heartbeat before we are born. We move to it instinctively before we learn to walk. We seek it in others before we know how to speak. Because music is not a part of life. It is life translated into sound. And in those rare moments when everything aligns, the harmony, the rhythm, the emotion, we don't just hear music. We become it. We become the vibration. We become the song. And the universe, through us, remembers itself. Across cultures, religions, and eras, music has always been associated with the divine. In Hinduism, the universe begins with a sound, Om. In Christianity, angels sing to announce the sacred. In Islam, the Quran is recited in melodic cadence. In ancient Greece, the lyre of Apollo was the bridge between mortals and gods. Always music. Always vibration. Even in science, when astronomers convert the data from distant stars into sound, what emerges is not chaos, but rhythm, patterns, echoes. The stars, it seems, are singing, not metaphorically, literally. It's almost as if the cosmos can't help but express itself musically. And we, being made from the same matter as those stars, respond to that song. We carry the rhythm of the universe inside us, in our breath, in our heartbeat, in our brainwaves. Even our DNA carries frequencies, each strand vibrating like the string of an instrument tuned across billions of years. Maybe that's why certain songs can move us so deeply, even if we don't understand the lyrics. Maybe it's not the message, it's the frequency, the alignment, the recognition of a pattern we've known all along, buried beneath thought. When you listen to music that resonates with you, something inside aligns. You become still even as you move, present even as you feel memory, awake even as your eyes closed. It's not just beautiful, it's transformative. That's why we turn to music in our darkest moments. When words fail, when silence is too heavy, when pain becomes unbearable, music steps in, not to explain but to accompany, to hold, to witness. It does not judge or solve, it resonates. And in doing so, it reminds us that we are not separate, not broken, not alone. We are part of something ancient, vibrating and alive, something that sings. We often talk about being moved by music, as if sound itself could reach into our bodies and shift something inside. And maybe it does. Maybe music is not just heard with the ears, but felt with the entire nervous system. Maybe it travels along nerves through blood and into bone, vibrating us from the inside out. That would explain why certain songs feel physical. Why a single chord can make your chest tighten. Why harmony can feel like relief. Why dissonance feels like tension waiting to resolve. It's not just emotional, it's biological. Your heart adjusts to tempo. Your breath follows phrasing. Your body begins to sway without instruction. It's almost involuntary, like a memory the body never forgot. And the most incredible part is that this happens to all of us. Regardless of age, culture, belief, or experience, music speaks. It communicates what language can't. It travels across barriers. It reaches where explanation cannot go. In the most advanced studies of the brain, scientists are still baffled by how music works. Not how sound travels, not how we hear, but how we feel. Why do we cry when a melody rises? Why do we feel hope when chords resolve? Why do we experience silence between notes as meaningful? The answers remain unclear. But what's certain is this: music does not simply reflect what we feel. It creates feeling. It organizes emotion. It sculpts time. It brings shape to the invisible world within. And maybe that's what makes us human. Not the tools, not the language, not the technology, but the ability to hear something that isn't there yet and bring it into the world through sound, to transform silence into beauty, to turn vibration into meaning, to make the universe audible.